A very warm welcome to all of our listeners inside the Vitrina Business Network for yet another exciting session today. We have Shawn Moffatt, who's actually joining us. He's a co-founder and CEO of My Entertainment. A very interesting business, Shawn, that you run. Very warm welcome to the Vitrina Business Network.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I say that Vitrina is my girlfriend, and because I spend so much time with her, I'm trying. It's a new relationship. We're trying to figure each other out, and so we're having a lot of fun dating.
That will be our headline for sure for this particular podcast. And Shawn, would love to get a take from you on your business and almost like an intro. How would you introduce the company to our network?
Sure. So My Entertainment is a traditional production company, independent. We're not staked, is a term that I use by anyone. We haven't taken money from Sony or ITV or any of those. I'm open to those conversations if they want to have them and they're listening. Give me a shout. But currently, we're truly independent and still having a lot of fun. It is one of 9 media companies that my business partner and I own, and the only one in the what we call show production space. All of our other companies are standalone services that work for production companies, work for network streamers, digital corporate agency brand, all of those types of things. And we're truly international. We can do anything in the supply chain, and I know your company is such a great asset at mapping supply chain, but we have all these assets along the supply chain that provide services to media companies and streamers and networks that stand alone, but then we can roll them all up together, and then we can do our the shows that we do and use all of those services to not only book people, shoot content, pay people, staff them, all the things that go along with it, and deliver the final product. So all of that is under a company called Media Content Services, which is a really boring name and by design, but we get to have a lot of fun and play with a lot of great people in the sandbox in media.
Fascinating. And clearly from everything that I've seen, you really sort of have a core understanding of production, and then how all of the work that flows out of that. That's kind of your core, correct?
It is our core, and the thing that I like to tell people more than anything, and you can truly appreciate this given what you guys do and the service that you provide through technology, is that we have a lot of data flow that comes through our different companies that allow me, prior to having access to your service, I mean, it was better than putting a finger in the wind and kind of seeing where the breeze was going. I had good data coming in, and I could be fairly predictive as to kind of what was happening in the marketplace, from the clients that we were shooting for, to the shows that we were pitching, the people we were talking to on various levels from all 8 companies. So we would get little bits, and we could really combine all that data into one place. What Vitrina's really done, and I have a year-over-year use case example, is really sharpen that pencil. And where we thought we were, I'd say we were maybe, 80% right. Now we are, 97% right, 99, because we can really dial it in by looking into Vitrina, and even tapping into the people that work for you to further get data. And whether that's from an acquisition standpoint, because we're looking to buy other companies in the production space, or just sales and trying to sell and pitch shows to the right person. Are they still there? To, who's doing the deals, which I love, that aspect of Vitrina is like, who are the deal makers? Like, because, a lot of times I would look at our team and I would say, hey, I think we're just pitching the wrong person. We're
Right.
just not talking to the right human. And it certainly helps, utilizing that aspect of the software or the service.
Fascinating, fascinating. And what really again fascinates me about your business is the fact that you actually acquire companies as part of the whole mix, and you can actually sort of plug if you see demand for a particular kind of content, or within a particular specialization, or within a specific genre, you can actually make a targeted acquisition to sort of fill in that particular insight.
Yeah, we absolutely can. I mean, we're not running around with bags of money. We're not a, venture capitalist who can just,
That's right.
pick up assets here and there. They're very strategic. Um, we really like looking for really solid companies that have a good track record in the community. I'd say My Entertainment, I'll use as an example. We've owned it 2.5 years. We're probably the only crazy people that decided to go get into show production during COVID and double down on it. And we invested in ourselves first in creating a company called Brands and Content then that put a small team together, and we went out and spun up development and pitched and sold and did all that. But at the time, we did that because at the time there were no other production companies for sale in that target price range for us.
Right.
And for us, we're definitely on that smaller side. We're not ITV. I love those guys and know a lot of companies and assets that they've picked up over the years. But would love to get to that level. We're not there yet, and having fun on this smaller side. But that just means that you've really got to have a good product that's had multiple seasons, and so that the order for pickup is more likely to happen. And we're fortunate in that in a great title, Ghost Adventures, that's 24 seasons deep, fortunately, and on Discovery Plus and Max, and was on Travel Channel before that. And so that's really the hallmark show of ours, and we have several other titles, but we kind of look at that first, right? Is there a marquee, property? And so I tapped into people at Vitrina and was like, all right, let's start looking, at some other possible targets that we could look at. And not only do we look in the United States, but we look in Canada and we look in the UK as well. And great use case, year over year example. I did this, internal research project last year where we had to, Google and guess, and I think we were looking at Canada exclusively at that point, and there were 700 production companies of any level just listed anywhere on the internet, right? We whittled that down to 70 real possibilities, and then whittled that down to 35. And then I picked up the phone and I called all 35 and said, introduced myself, and they were scheduled a Zoom and had a good chat with them. And the premise was, look, we're looking for, and I think we were using LinkedIn Reach Out at that point, and not in internal mail, but direct to them.
Right.
And said, look, we're looking to introduce ourselves and either work together or invest or acquire a company in Canada, and we'd love to have a conversation with you. Really simple message. I think now I would know much more about those companies, and I wouldn't have to bounce between, a window of their website and LinkedIn and, several other things that we used for key factors to do that. So, really just saving time, right? The thing I say about AI more than anything is it's a great assistant, and it's not the leader. It's a good tool for us to use to shorten timelines so that we can spend more thought time and that deeper work, talking to humans and have a good background of who we're talking to before we get in there. And this platform does a great job of that, and is a lot more is faster and more efficient than I was having to jump through those hoops. I think I spent probably, I don't know, 2.5 months kind of going through that whole process.
Oh gosh. No, look. I mean, you just described our our key proposition so beautifully, actually, Shawn. So we will definitely, sort of use a few of these clips to also explain to a host of our new members about the proposition. That was exactly how the Vitrina solution was framed. We were actually seeing very frustrated execs, at all, companies of all sizes. I mean, it's not as if, small companies are having those problems, or mid-sized companies, or some of the large corporations. That problem runs across everyone who's trying to go into maybe Brazil or into Canada, for instance, right? Some of these are Western markets, and yet the business data traditionally in our industry has been so poor that
Yeah,
trying to...
I agree, and I'm such a fan of distribution, so I'm able to use the platform to sort of be a voyeur in that space, because I'm in the U.S. only currently. I haven't been able to acquire a Canadian company yet. If you're out there and you've got good numbers, give me a shout. Or in the UK, those seem to be a little more riddled in debt. I don't want to invest in debt, but if you're solvent, like, give me a shout. But to be able to look at the distribution funnel, knowing that at some point in time I'm going to get into that space,
Right.
and I'm really interested in that. On top of scripted, right? Like, currently I'm only unscripted in the U.S. We don't own any IP, but we will, right? We'll get there at some point. So to be a casual observer and to get data along the way, in addition to, of course, probably listening to the same industry podcasts you guys listen to. I was listening to one this morning on the way over here, kind of a deep dive on Roku, who's a really interesting group. But I can do that same thing on this platform, and I can really answer the questions that I'm looking for, because I'm coming at it from a different way, and probably a similar way that more of your CEO and corporate folks are looking at it. But then I can put my, production hat on, and I can just basically go, which I did a year ago manually, that I can do much more efficiently now, is go look at who's buying, what are they buying? Those are my targets, because in this marketplace, especially in the US, there's so little buying going on. We don't have the time to develop for companies that aren't acquiring. And I could get a good gauge and a good feeling. I don't think these folks have bought anything, but in the past, it would take me 6 months to a year to really see that play out, right? But I'd be on the back end of it. With Vitrina, I was able to, as soon as we signed on, and it's only been maybe a month, I don't know, I've been buried in it, feels like 6. In digging into the data, I could see very quickly that I was close, right? I was in that 80-85% range, but then really sharpened my pencil, and I was like, okay, wait, we knew it wasn't great, but it really wasn't great. And wow, we shouldn't have spent as much time on that potential buyer as we did. And not that they were leading us on, but we would have had a lot more data going into it, and a better feeling and a better gauge of how much time should we spend on this. And that's what I can do now. And I can get that time back and go spend it on a buyer who's truly buying a lot of hours.
Fascinating. Again, I mean, all of the use cases that you describe are exactly how Vitrina was imagined. Even in its sort of concept, we are seeing a lot of those kind of use cases where folks are, trying to search for the right partners, co-pro partners, post-production partners, right, across the supply chain. And they don't want to go in blind. They want some sort of a pecking order of, which are the shortlisted folks who typically match that criteria. Shawn, that really brings me to one very curious question. if you had to describe like the perfect candidate company that you want to go after, that you say, hey, you know what, would love to have this company join our portfolio. What would those sort of dimensions be? What are you usually looking for?
Yeah, we have a really interesting acquisition strategy, and I'm glad you asked that. We love companies where there's a primary owner that is looking to transition. Either typically it's they're looking for an exit to retire. They've been in the industry 20 plus years. They're not quite sure how they're gonna, you know, hand off this asset, if you will, but that's a very robotic term. I mean, really hand their child to somebody else.
That's right.
And Michael Uden did that, for us, and I'm ever thankful for him for trusting us with his child to shepherd them into this next, phase. And now that child's 24 years old. And so we get them in their young adulthood, and so we get to help shape them there. But we love that kind of model. We love anywhere from 75 hours to 150 that they've got on the air. Now, typically, I would say they probably have less than they would in those buckets, just where the marketplace is. But that's kind of what we look for. I mean, there's this strategic price range that we kind of look for, anywhere from 7 to 15 million US. And so, and we want to run these, right? We're not looking to do a roll up to string stuff together, to package it up, to sell it to somebody else. If that happens later on, okay, I'll have a conversation. Look, I'm an entrepreneur first, creative second. And that's why we create businesses, but we're still having a lot of fun and really do want to grow into Canada and into the UK and spend time learning about those markets and distribution, and get into what I call scripted light, Hallmark movies, stuff like that. So that's the kind of thing that we look for. So if anybody's out there and you're watching this, I do these calls all the time, and I love business conversations and meeting new people. And at the end of it, at worst, and I say my first line to them is, look, at least I made a new friend. We've got somebody that we've met in the marketplace. We can, talk about co-pros all the time. We can talk about video crews and services. And this completely happened with a company out of the UK. Great conversation, great owner, great CEO. I don't think he hasn't actually sold. But one of my company's go-to team that has directors of photography all over the U.S. that are staffed for us. We have 20 throughout the country in major markets. They needed better video crews in the U.S. to shoot their shows, where all the content goes back, and people in production companies that you've all heard of are, use our services out of Canada as well. And so that was fantastic. It wasn't necessarily the goal, but it was always, look, we're doing good business in the marketplace. You're doing good business in the marketplace. If we can, business 101, like if we can help you, I'm happy to help you. That's low hanging fruit. So, you never know what could come from it, but I would say, one of the things that I dug into in the last few weeks was exactly what you're saying, which is potential GoPro partners. The thing I like about My Entertainment and what Michael Uden set up was he was very international from the outset. And I had that same mentality because we grew up through services. So we never owned our IP. We never, we were just happy to shoot the content and hand it off and get the season, right? We would do it through that company go-to team, and Fixer Upper is a great example. Then we were fortunate enough to do that with High Noon Entertainment. Those guys have always been great to me, and the partners that were there before ITV bought it out were fantastic to me and taught me a ton about the industry, and really just kept answering my questions. But through those opportunities, we were able to grow and be in this space. So I understand co-pros, and I'm okay cutting the pie. And a lot of people won't want to don't want to do that, especially in the States. And I get it, and I understand. And I'm fortunate that I just kind of grew up with this mentality, and I'm honestly okay, cutting it into thirds. I don't want to live and die by one title. I'm okay getting points on the board. I'm fortunate that I have all these other companies, not that they're doling off bags of money, but it allows us to have a much more strategic play in the marketplace where the content can become second or third in the conversation with a bigger company for me. And I understand how that isn't the case for everybody, and I have nothing but respect for them and that. But it allowed me to really go in and do exactly what you said, which is look at who's doing deals, who has the most co-productions. And I've done this search. So I came out of it with two. I'll leave them. I won't name their names, but that have done a lot of co-pros. So clearly they're open to it, and they would entertain that conversation. And then we would just have to, find a project that they believed in as much as I do. But we do co-pros all the time, and are very fortunate to have done one recently with Spring Hill, with Maverick and LeBron's company, for Vice, and those guys are fantastic. I do stuff with them all day, every day, and plenty, throughout the world. We have co-pros in Canada and the UK as well. But it allowed me to really dial in and go, oh wow, I definitely have to call those two.
Nice, fascinating. This is just I mean that it was so clear about how the criteria that you sort of look at, or the right mix that you look at in the companies that you want to at least have a conversation with, as you said. And then from a business model perspective, these are companies that are doing commission work, series. They've got multiple confirmations for multiple seasons. So there's a track record that's really showing
Definitely.
that they are in with that with the commissioner for good.
Yeah, and different, it can be different buyers. I think what we see a lot is, and the thing that I took away from that, and this industry is talking about consolidation all the time, right? So I think it's a good conversation. It's healthy, and we talk about it from the highs and what's Apple going to buy, what's Amazon, what's Alphabet, and we all play that game. And I'm listening to at least 5 podcasts in the industry, all over the world, and they're all talking about the same thing. But you can bring that down, as well, to production companies and who will survive and who won't. And unfortunately, I mean, it's a really tough marketplace out there. There's just not a lot of buying, and it's just really hard to stay afloat. And I feel, for all of us that are going through this, I'm a blue sky guy. Everything's a cycle. Things will, flush themselves out, but it's going to be really hard. And I don't know that 25 will be that much better. And so, everybody's got to hang in there, but the platform allows me to really dial it in. And that's what you've got to do. You've really got to dial it in. You're going to see, we've already seen the slimming on the buyer side, and you have to do the same thing. I mean, I don't want to get preachy about business. I could, but you've got to right size, for your production company as well. And that's unfortunate. And those are tough conversations with employees. And I have 50 some odd employees, all over the place, and would hate to do that. And want to get to 100 and 150 employees and the right people. But, it's going to be tricky, in this next, 12 months. But again, you can use the platform to really dial everything in, and you've got to make the hard choices, but the platform will give you the data to make good, informed choices. And that's the most important thing to me, honestly. And it's really just made me better. And, I'd be saying this stuff and I'm paying the bill and all of that stuff. You're not paying me. But it really is, helping me, and at a, every cost is a cost, but I would say, at a reasonable amount for the return that I'm getting back. It's, it's not It's not a condo in Miami. So,
I, I don't. Yes, it is. It isn't a condo in Miami for sure. But the other question I had, Shawn, was also relating to uh, where. I mean, are you gravitating towards true crime, or is it just the first set of assets that you picked up?
yeah.
You talked about unscripted.
We didn't talk before this. So, there was no pre-interview. So I love that. So absolutely, yes. And again, like, this is a great time because October of last year, I did my own internal research because I didn't know this existed. And if I had, it would have been a lot faster and I would have been that much sharper, but I was pretty close. And I felt like, and I'll try to go through this quickly. The thought process was, who's buying? What are they buying? Pretty
Right.
simple, basic business principles,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yep.
I can't be providing a service to someone who doesn't want the service. Like that,
That's
there's
right.
no business.
Yep.
So did that. You very quickly will see who the top buyers are in that, and I won't say them. So hopefully people will use the platform to figure that out themselves. But if they want to hit me up, I'll give them the answers to the test,
Right.
and save them time. I'm happy to do it because I've already done the work.
Right.
So there's a couple top buyers that are buying and they're buying true crime. So I said to my team, guess what, team? We're in the true crime business. And of course, we can tell any kind of story. These folks have been doing this with My Entertainment for 24 years and then plus before My Entertainment. So, I'm sure all of the people listening and production companies would say the same thing. We all get pigeonholed by buyers and all that. I get it too. But especially with paranormal. But so anyway, so we did that. March through, we were fortunate enough to get 4 paid development deals. Let's see, I made that decision in October of last year. By mid-January, we had 4 paid development deals in that space. So we made the right choice. All that did, and paid development deals, everybody knows, it's not going to pay the bills or keep the lights on. All it does is prove the model, right?
Sure.
And so I was able to go, okay, we're moving in the right direction. We did that. Now, fast forward a year, and I'm doing the same thing. It was so much faster to just figure it out and use the platform and use software to do that, right? And
Right.
I was smart enough to know what questions to ask, what to look for, was able to use the people that work for you that do a fantastic job to really dial some other stuff in and be at an even bigger level.
Right.
Not knowing every lever to pull and how to, sort filters and all of those things, to really dial it in. So, but yeah, true crime for sure. But then I'm always, looking at, what's after true crime, because at some point, maybe this wanes. I'm surprised it's lasted as long, but there's a pretty voracious audience out there, which is fantastic. It seems like it's going to last a while. And so have conversations and also poke around about, some of those things that could be bubbling up next. So we're in that space, but let's not forget. And I just asked a question last night on the platform because I was trying to figure out, I was looking for a particular buyer. Had they done X
Right.
number of deals or whatever, right? Which I think is probably one of the more valuable things on this level of being a production company.
That's right.
What's selling, who's buying it, who internally is the person making the
That's right.
decision buy it. And that's super important. It's about talking to the right person. And again, like, this is your assistant. It's this business is still about relationships.
Yes.
And you either have that relationship or you don't. And if they're only buying 2 to 4 properties, you probably need to know who they are. And if you're looking at who did the deal and you're like,
Right.
I don't have any relationship to them, or let me ask my agent, and I run this same playbook every day myself. Hey, do you know these people? Oh, okay. And then I always say, well, how well do you know them? Like, were you in their wedding? And these are real questions that I ask.
Wow.
And the person shot back that it was a text, and they said, haha. I was like, I was not in their wedding, but they were a showrunner for me, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, all right, I'll give you that. It sounds like you know them. But
Okay.
that's valuable, right? But you still have to punt back to people. And do you actually know these folks? And if you don't, and you don't have a connection point to them, I'm not going to say don't try, but man, it's going to be really hard, because you think they might be buying 4 things for 25. They're probably buying 2. One's going to go to a vendor that is providing shows for them already. That other one is the jump ball. And then you're just going to win on relationship or quality of product. So you're going to really need to have both. And these are the rules that I play by as well. And
Right.
there's nothing special, to me. And it's just, there's just such a lack of buying out there. You've really got to be dialed in. And this service and software and the people that you guys employ, really do help that.
No, thanks for that example, actually, Shawn. Again, we've actually seen example after example after example where even on the indie side, with filmmakers who are wanting to sort of sell their movie internationally, they bounce around so much, wasting a lot of time, resource, and just valuable opportunities that could have been if they just had that conversation with the right person. They just want to hear a yay or a nay, right? Sometimes saying that, hey, I've got a great movie, I've just shot it, I've completed it. Where can I sell it? And they keep bouncing around with the wrong sort of people. I mean, just to give you some perspective, right? Netflix is 14,000 people, at give or take, right? Some of the larger corporations, like 50,000 people, 40,000 people. You want that one conversation, that one valuable conversation could change the pace of your business, and just get that answer. You just want an answer saying, hey, is there a deal here or not? And gosh, I mean, we've heard sort of horror stories of really good assets that just missed speaking to the right person on the other side. So, I think you've seen the latest feature. We've actually now added who the deal makers are and what are they in the market buying. Are they buying formats? Are they buying scripted, unscripted movies, features, so on and so forth?
And that's so
Quite
valuable, right? It really is. Am I talking to the right person?
That's right.
I've got a product on my list this morning is a project that was taken out, I'd say over the last 6 months, 8 months. I mean, and I swear, it takes 9 months to go through that entire chain, at least in Unscripted, from development to pitching to potential sale to, no, we're not going to make that. I mean, it's 9 months, and it's,
Wow.
and honestly, that really hasn't changed over time. It's just you were having multiple of those conversations that lasted 9 months, and there were potential several buyers until it was much more viable, right?
Right.
But now you've really got to be dialed in, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you don't
Right.
know that person isn't the right person. You always need an advocate, I say, right? And somebody else who's going to believe in your project. And there's so few now. You go from a development department from 6 to 1, and everything's dumped in their lap, and add in holidays and this and life and all this other stuff, and man, that calendar gets really short really quick, and people have limits. So I think they're doing a fantastic job. It's tough, for them as tough as it is for us. And again, like, we all listen to the same stuff and we all get it. But I really do think that you can take all of that stuff and keep doing it, keep listening to those podcasts, keep talking to people and all that stuff, and then use this. And man, I don't know what information you don't have at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we constantly sort of digging to the next level to make it that much more sort of nuanced. Because again, especially with the host of larger sort of streamers, broadcasters, they have teams on the other side that are highly specialized. They split by genre and by language and by country, and it really becomes a very complex mesh of people who have that one sort of specialist sort of task to do, or content to acquire, or commission. And for us, it's to dial down to the right department and the right person at the right desk, And then, finally, as you mentioned, right, those two people have to get along and they have to understand each other's sort of propositions and needs. But our entire our burden to carry is the intelligence to figure out who to have that conversation with.
Yeah, that supply chain that you guys offer is invaluable. And I'm a small guy, right? Like I'm probably tapping into 10% of what this can do. And I can imagine and I would love to probably sit down with somebody from ITV who's using it and mapping different stuff just so I can see things that I'm not even thinking about that can again add to my data collection that I'm getting from my crews in the field, from my, brokerage that hires, camera people in the UK and producers that tell me, hey, yeah, I just found out that this company's not doing this show and there's no pickup, right? I'm getting that. But if I'm tapping into distribution and distributors and people in different markets, imagine like I could then go, oh, I did see a property that would work well in, Spain or wherever.
Right.
And typically it might not have been something that I would do. Now I'm like, there's almost a mandate. Like I absolutely have to do it. Let me go find the co-pro partner that will get this, who's doing a lot of those deals. Okay,
Right.
I'm going to call those 5 instead of starting, from a search of 700,
Right.
and I can just tap right into those folks and then go pitch them to see if they want to partner on something. And they probably know the buyer and they have the thing. And I can even, fact check those guys because there are plenty of times, we've co-proed with people and you have a good feeling, a good vibe. They're good people. Of course they are. They're trying to sell their stuff as well.
Right.
You like them, and then you just feel like, they're not giving the property the push, that you would. And that's always sort of the nature of a co-pro because they're, trying to sell their stuff too. But you could use this to get there faster and find the right people and do all that. So I bet those guys have a lot more fun than I do, and I'm having a ton of fun, now.
We are getting a lot of, now that the intel and information is there, we are getting very sort of next level questions. I'll give you one and just tease you with that one, Shawn. The latest one that we heard yesterday from one of the larger sort of production companies was they want to understand different countries and what is the time between development to production and from production to release. They want to see, how long, what is the gestation period for content that actually makes the cut right from development through production through release. And they want to estimate, different countries and different markets of which get it out quickly and which take, longer time. Because finally, it's all about the money. It's all about the financing. How long is money getting stuck in a particular story or a particular project before you can actually sort of realize the returns on it. I was like,
Well, and I can imagine they're looking at, oh, do I do this in Australia, or, is this a South Africa
that's right.
thing, or do I now go to South America or wherever? And again, I'm a casual observer of those things, and it's fascinating to me. So I bet they get to have a lot of fun. Um, and I like the reports. Again, I'm sort of a new member, over the last month, and have seen what Netflix and then Amazon
That's
yesterday.
right. That's right.
And look, I could look at Amazon and go, this is sort of how I'm feeling about these guys. This is the vibe that I'm getting from pitching. But the data from yesterday, there were a couple of nuggets in there for me
Right.
that really dialed in. And again, for me on and that team pitching, it's do we spend our time there? Do we not spend our time there? Do
Right.
we have
Yeah.
what we think that they want, right? Because
Right.
it's about the value proposition of time for both of us, right? The buyer
Yes.
and the
Yes.
seller. And the last thing that I want to do, and I think so many people in this industry were used to that cadence of staying in front of people. That I think now, because you've got so few of them on that receiving side, that are receiving the pitches, I'd almost rather not bother them. Like,
Right.
the days of just spraying and praying, I call it, and just
Yeah.
sending something out to get in their inbox and remind them that you exist in the world with a property that they're not going to buy. I really would prefer to just give them their time back and not waste it.
Right.
And I hope that they, know that there are people like me out there that they might not be hearing from a ton, or people on
Right.
my team. But the reason is we know this isn't for you, and we don't want to waste your time because we know you're the only one there. Like,
Right. Right.
so
Right.
we would rather just say, we're going to save you that time. You're welcome. And we'll hit you when we've got something we think that makes sense for you.
Right. Right. No, no, look, I mean, again, the industry is shifting very, very rapidly. And, I think the value of Intel is perhaps most when things are not as regimented and templatized. If there was a formula, that's long broken. There was a formula for sure, maybe 15 years ago in the prime days of broadcast and pay TV. That that is effectively broken now. You've got a completely different set of folks, and it continues to change. I mean, so one of the things that we are highlighting in our podcasts and even some of the sessions where we covered Netflix and Amazon was how rapidly things are changing because A, it's a global village, and B, there are all these new stakeholders that are software companies that have entered into the space, and they have very different rules and very different business models that kind of pay their bills. So their compulsions of business are very, very different. Ambitions are
Yeah.
different.
Well, and I think that's interesting that you bring that up. I mean, we have a software company as well. So I completely understand that. I've got 30 coders outside of my door. I've got this boring wall that you see, but facing that way is a fishbowl of
Well,
a bunch of people on a floor. And so I understand that. And it really is sort of, I wouldn't say the Wild West. I'd say there's a lot of entrenched people that have grown up in the space over time and are serious and good at their jobs that have been doing this 15 to 20 years. And then
right.
you've got the Mavericks coming in here, sort of going, that doesn't make sense to me, right? There's always, and I'm probably one of those guys because I'm more of a business guy, and I have a super high immediacy factor and a no BS factor. It's like exactly what you were saying earlier. It's like, yeah, I'd love a thumbs up, but a quick thumbs down is, sometimes just
Exactly.
as useful versus 9 months later.
That's right.
Um, but I think everybody would say that, right? But I think it's finding those white spaces, and I've been able to find some of those white spaces using Vitrina, and will they play out? Will they prove out? I'd say about content creation, it's like standing on the sand on the beach. As
Huh.
soon as you stop, the sand are shifting below your feet the whole
That's
time.
right.
What's
That's right.
going to happen in and around you while that's happening, right? Is someone going to be there the next day? Is the mandate going to change before you can get your product, done and delivered? All the normal things that people talk about, but the ability to move faster and use this to do that has again within a month has been a game changer.
Fascinating. And again, totally echo everything that you just mentioned, especially about the shifting sands below our feet. It is happening very, very rapidly. Shawn, I mean, just as we come to the end of our sort of conversation, one aspect that I'm absolutely wanting to understand from you is in the coming year. You talked about 2025 still being not a great year, but it'll be a hard year. All of us will be still in the trenches and we'll be still sort of fighting, in within the industry. How do you sort of see the year play out, and what are the big exciting aspects that you're looking out for in your business?
So I'll start with sort of the newer conversations. I think especially in the US, where I'm based, I think you're going to see some acquisitions. You're going to see some consolidation. I don't think they're going to be at the big levels. I mean, maybe, who knows, right? I don't have access to their P&L and balance sheet and EBITDA and free cash flow. I mean, we get their reports, but they're in conversations that we're not in. We're not in those meetings. And my business partner and I love kind of guessing at what, if we were, Roku, who would we want to buy us, right?
Right.
Or do they do something, and flip the model and wag the dog? Like, I don't know. Like, that's super exciting and fun to me to watch. And so we'll see how that plays out. I think those are the things that you want to be watching for when you're deciding who to pitch. And do I spend time there? Like, again, they're top of mind for me, and I love David Eilenberg. He's been a great advocate of mine for a long time. So I always wish those guys well, and they're super smart. And the guy that runs it's from Fox and Fox Entertainment. Fox Sports is a huge client, and they're big into sport, right? So I've got all these companies and all this intrinsic knowledge that I can kind of, mind meld a lot of the stuff. But I'm just a fan of business in general. So I'm excited to see, how those things play out. But knowing that those affect people's lives and all of that stuff, I get it. I have employees. And it's hard, but that's fascinating and fun. I think it will be just as difficult, this year because of those things going on, right? Like, so many people got into sports, and we've been in sports for, I don't know, 22 years. I mean, it's been, there's always another game. There's always another story to tell. And so it's great, for our other services businesses, but it's expensive. And a lot of money got spent on sports rights. And even, again, I'll just use Roku because it's top of mind. I mean, they have like Saturday baseball morning kind of package they bought, which is cheaper than, a mainline, thing. But for that company and the revenues that they spin off, that's a lot of money. And so that just keeps you from buying other things. And so that adds to the reduction in sales. And so you've got to really be a student of the business, of the game.
Right.
And it's just not about it is about the product, but you've got to work backwards, right? You've got to reverse engineer the process to think all the way through their supply chain to what the creative piece could be that will ultimately get you the sale, right? And just be strategic backwards and finding people that are doing co-pros to partner with, because all the normal rules apply, right? You need good talent. You need good IP, you need a good story, you need good partners, all of that stuff. None of that's new, but the strategy behind it has shifted. And you've got to go to people that are additive, that will add value to the product or get it there faster. You need to be thinking about speed to market and less about, it's dare to say it, the content itself, right? And I'll probably get eggs thrown at me. But again, I'm more of a business guy, so don't fault me. And I have great creative people that have the concepts. And I sort of shepherd the strategy of, okay, I think we should go to these guys and we should get this celebrity, because everybody needs a celebrity still. And we just want them to EP it. That'll be fine. And now we've got to get them signed, but the sands are shifting beneath our feet while we're trying to go through BA and get this talent signed. And we're dealing with 3 and different projects right now.
Right.
And it's a lot of fun and it's fascinating and great people and great stories and all those things. But man, you got speed to market is paramount. And that's what you got to be thinking about. And I think we're going to be in a less is more, sort of category where you've got to be very strategic. And those big swings, no one's buying the big swings. They can't afford them.
Right.
I've got Pros versus Joes, and we own that IP. Like, if you want to buy that, it's for sale. And we've taken it, to market, but nobody can really afford it. It's an expensive, competition show that's got a proven track record, 6 seasons. And, we had it with the Rocks company. We had it with an overseas distributor, right? And it's a great property, but it's expensive. And people are like, I just can't afford that right now, right? And you're seeing that with all the major players, buying that sort of stuff. So you just have to, you got to read the tea leaves. You might have to put something back on the shelf, and you might have to settle for, a smaller, unscripted, getting, less of the pie to, get those small wins. But not unlike politics, it's about wins. Like, you've got to
Right.
stack up wins, and they, maybe they're small down ballot, maybe they're the big, the big prize. But you got to keep winning, and you got to find those opportunities, small or large.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, I think I totally agree with you on that piece. One of the other aspects that was also fascinating with something that you said earlier was Q3 that just went past, July-September quarter this year. We saw the highest number of co-productions. So, as I mean, the notes that you hit both about the insights and the people part of the business, but there are a host of these other collaborations that are also happening. Some of these co-pros are actually happening cross-border.
Yeah.
And my hunch is that that is also another big pattern that we'll actually see in the.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I've been preaching Canada for 2.5 years. As soon as I looked at the P&L and balance sheet of my entertainment, saw that Post was sort of, going out the door, I was like, we gotta solve this and have an internal Post solution. And, oh, by the way, there's this little place called Canada, and there seem to be these tax credits and incentives that nobody really understands,
Right.
up there. And I point to, a JC Mills, if you know JC at Cineflix, who's a buddy and a good client. A lot of times I'm like, stop talking, JC, and you're giving up our secret about Canada. But I'm really actually glad to see that people have adopted it. I think people in the States are very precious about the idea and want to hold on to 100% because they don't retain rights, right? If you built this in Canada or built this in the UK, now they're going, okay, yes, some deal structures have changed and you can own some of it, but it's not the same as Canada and the UK. And they'll go outside of house. We were doing the same thing, even with true crime. Like, if we wanted to position something for a particular buyer, we would find the back door. And a lot of times it was go out of the States because we were just seeing intrinsically, there was a sensibility that if you were from the UK, maybe it's the accent, I don't know what it is, but who cares? That's the rule. Just play by the rules that seem to be working. Grab a UK co-pro, bring it back into the States. Yeah, you're going to get less of it, but again, you're going to get a win. And so do that. And so that's beyond the, Canada post-production tax credit thing. Be strategic. This platform allows you to do that. Think way outside of the box. You're probably not going to own 100% of it. You just need to be okay with that. And I'm sorry, those are just the rules you're going to have to play by now. It won't always be that way. Just remember that. It'll always turn, and we'll get back to some semblance of normal, whatever that is. But this platform allows you to think that way, and you should be thinking that way, and this will let you move faster.
That's right. And my hunch is with everything that we've heard about Canada, you will be hearing, from some of our Canadian, users and network relating to a conversation that they may want to have about their business with you. So the next time that we're speaking, perhaps, Shawn, I might be congratulating you about a deal that you've just done in Canada. Looks like
we'll be talking about my deal. We'll be talking about the Hallmark movie that we're doing, and the distribution that I'm playing in, and what else I've found on the platform. I really would hope and would love to have that conversation. I wish I was having it now. But all things in due time, and we're not going anywhere, and we're having a lot of fun. So the people of Canada were fantastic to us during COVID. We really got on with a lot of them. They couldn't travel their cruise. They'd be locked down if they traveled in and traveled out and all of that stuff. And we were able to provide them the service that they needed, and they would have never, done that or used our service that many other people had, prior to. So we retained them as clients, and we really appreciate, everybody up there that has become a client and become a friend. Honestly, we
That's
hope
it.
to do the same thing without the pandemic in the UK, and make some friends over there as well. So we're everywhere. We love co-pros. We love good content, but we love a sale, more
Right.
than
Right.
anything. And we want to help people win, and that's what you
Fantastic.
guys do. So we appreciate you as well. So thank you for coming up with this, and putting the time in. Again, owning a software company, I know how hard it is, and time intensive, but you guys have done a great job.
Thank you. No, thanks for all that you sort of experiencing about the Vitrina platform. Again, your articulation about some of the use cases is so beautiful, because that's exactly the intent behind some of those features being sort of introduced in the Vitrina system. Shawn, this has been an absolute wonderful pleasure to understand not only some of the key focus areas that you have in as you sort of acquire interesting companies and create some great content that's piped across to great platforms on the other side. But your take on the industry and some of the rules that this industry is bound by were also fascinating to sort of hear. So thank you so much for making the time to speak to the Vitrina Network.
No, thank you. Rare treat. I love having high level conversations that are a lot of fun with people that are positive, about the industry, and we should be.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wishing you all the very best in the coming year in 2025, and hope to talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.